Welcome to Authentic with Brazil 201. I'm your host, Brazil 201, and we're going to talk about the first three episodes of season two of Paradise. And can I just say, the first two episodes truly deliver. The third episode is kind of, the show jumps around. If this is how season two, okay, let's backtrack everything. Obviously, the guy who made Paradise is the guy who makes This Is Us. So season two seems to follow the traditional structure of how the later seasons of This Is Us worked, which is where each episode, until we get to the point where everybody's together, is like focusing on a certain character and nobody else is around. And I understand the logistics of this because everyone on this show was also doing movies. Like, if we're forgetting about this, President Cal was filming the Avengers movies while also doing Paradise. As you all know, he dies in the first episode of season one, but he's still in the flashbacks of the pre explosion times and everything. And I gotta say, episode one, first of all, even before all of that, I am glad for like at least the next 3 or 4 years that every January and February we can expect The Pit and Paradise to be back because The Pit and Paradise are truly phenomenal shows. And just these first three episodes alone show Paradise has improved upon its first season. And I know I have not seen the full 10. I did not get access to it, but I see the reviews. They're like, it doesn't land the plane, but it's still phenomenal television. I will say this. As someone who saw, like, when the first season of The Last of Us premiered, I was given the first 4 episodes, and I hyped up saying episode 3 was one of the best episodes of television in the last decade, right? And it was. And then Paradise episode 7 was the best episode of television last year, right? Not the best show, but the best episode of television. I gotta say, episode 1 of season 2, unless the Pit does something crazy in the last 7 episodes, while the Pit is a phenomenal show, I think episode 1 of season 2 may be the best episode of TV we get all year. And I know people are going to say A Night of the Nine Kingdoms and maybe House of the Dragon. All great shows, but not truly the episode itself transcends the show. And I gotta say, now that the show has now had 2 episodes that transcend the show, where everyone always talks about episode 7, I think everyone's going to talk about episode 1, season 2 in the same way. So, let's begin. Episode 1 is called Graceland. We meet um, Shailene Woodley's character, who new to the show. Her name is Annie, and she is a tour guide in Memphis, Tennessee when the world ends. And we start off in like a flashback. Her mom is like a crack whore, and she dies, of a drug overdose right in front of her when she's like a little kid. We then time jump to her as a young adult, and she is in the Pit, not the Pit like the show, but she's in a residential program like Grey's Anatomy or the Pit, and she sees the drugs that the patient is on the same drugs her mother was and has like a mental breakdown and drops out of med school. So she cries in front of the Elvis Tour House in Memphis, Tennessee, because she's from Memphis, Tennessee, and she grew up there, and she ends up becoming a tour guide there because she went there all the time as a kid. And the security guard ends up hiring her to be the tour guide on the day she drops out of med school. Then they get the alert of the volcano explosion in Australia, and then before the internet goes out, the CNN alert that Australia is underwater, and because Annie is a survivor, because she grew up basically on her own, she's like, she's assuming nukes are going to drop or volcano explosion or something. She's like, look, get to the basement, get everything you need, blah, blah, blah. And that happens. She lets all the horses go too, right? Because apparently Elvis had like a horse farm or whatever. She lets everyone go. They go into the basement. But when the aftershock explosions happen, the security guard's leg gets injured, and because they don't have penicillin or amoxicillin or shit like that, the she ends up dying from an infection on her knee. That's what happens. It's very cold. No, she didn't want to start a fire. We then jump forward 3 years to not quote unquote present day in Paradise, about a week or two before season 1 begins. A bunch of army guys who are somehow driving a truck come into the Elvis place she hides, and we meet a new character, the guy who played Sebastian in Legacies, and he was also Max Wolf on the Gossip Girl reboot. he plays a character named Link, as in yes, and he is named apparently after the Legend of Zelda character. And we assume, because we've seen Walking Dead, we've seen Last of Us, oh, army guys, 3 years into the apocalypse, they find a woman, they're gonna rape her, they're gonna do all this. This is how we assume, right? And the sound and the music and all of that is the same way we're like, oh god, they're gonna find her, they're gonna rape her, they're gonna do the absolute worst things for her. She makes sense. This is just the things you would expect in like an apocalypse. Um, Link gets her and he's like, look, I'm not gonna do this to you. I'm not doing anything bad to you. I want to talk to you. I just need information. How long have you been here? You know, shit like that. And she beats up Link, hides in her house, and they just end up not taking over the house in a bad way, like in how like The Walking Dead, but you know they're cooking and things like that, and they're just talking. She comes out of her room with the gun, and she just sits, and she's like, "Hi," and they just talk, and they begin, you know, explaining everything that happens, and they're like, "Look, before, you know, the world ended, this is what I was, you know, etc." And they go, look, we're trying to get to Colorado. We believe there's a bunker, and one of the people in the group is like, I think the one of the countries had a global EMP device, and that's why everything that seems to be built after 1970 isn't working. But everything made before a certain time is working, which is how we found parts for our car. And they're like, we heard Elvis had a bunch of cars, and they're all made in 1950. So we believe they were made before the secret EMP device and that they should work. And they, you know, they end up like living together for a week or two. And then Link and Amy Jurgens, I know her name is Annie, but her character acts a lot like Amy Jurgens from The Secret Life of American Teenager. And they have, you know, they finally go on a tour. He's like, "Can I give you guys a tour? This is my job." And they did an amazing tour. They have sex. Okay. And then she hides in her room afterwards, and they leave. And he leaves a note. He's like, "We're going to Colorado. I'm going to come back for you." And we time jump 9 months, not, or 7 months. She's pregnant. She's pregnant with Link's kid. Very Amy Jurgens. You know, I can't, you know, but I gotta say, Shailene Woodley looks beautiful in this, and she really can carry the show. I think she's the best new addition to the show. And then we see she sees a plane crash into the forest. She gets on her horse, like Ariana Grande does in Wicked, and she heads over. Flash forward to episode 2, we're now in the Xavier point of view. He's in the plane, and because of the ash all over the United States, he can't see where we are. None of the tracking devices work because of the EMP. He's just kind of guessing based on where to go, based on where the sun rises. He crashes. So Xavier crashes the plane. He was flying pretty low. He survives the plane crash, and a child finds him, and this is where we meet the Children of the Corn, who are dressed like the South Park characters. So remember, it has been 3 years since the world ended, and oh, we also learn in the first episode. This is my bad. That because of the group they're from, that Link's group is from, they kind of know the territories of what the United States is right now, and that Arkansas is one of the worst places in this new America, like taking over complete rule militia. But he's like, we have to get to Colorado, but we have to go through St. Louis because everything south of the Mississippi line is disastrous, like in a way. So that happens. Anyway, this little kid uh, sees Xavier, takes his supplies, and falls out, brings Xavier into the bunker. We meet all these little South Park kids. They don't speak at all, except for the one kid. And he's like, we speak English. We're just quiet because we think we're being followed, right? And he's like, where are you from? And he's like, Colorado. And then he asks, where are your parents or whatever? And they're like, we were on a school trip 3 years ago. And after everything happened, our teachers, they just left us. And they've been on their own. So this is the funnier thing with this is that this is my thing in any apocalyptic scenario. If you see children, like younger than 13, actually, yeah, younger than 13, after 3 years into the apocalypse, they're evil. Because the things they've had to do to survive on their own means they're no longer children, okay? And they don't talk, they're kind of rummaging through his food, things like this happens. He goes back to the plane to look for stuffing. Apparently a guy has been following them. He kills the guy. and the children bury him because the children don't like death. Then, he passes out, and the children steal all the supplies. They left a note, but with the pictures of his children saying sorry. He goes back to the plane again, passes out, and then Annie finds Xavier, puts him up on the horse, takes him to back to the Memphis place, and he's in and out of consciousness. And he goes, "You were on the," and Annie asks Xavier, "You were on the plane?" He goes, "Yes." He goes, "Where are you heading? Where are you from?" He's like, "I'm heading. I'm from Colorado, a secret bunker. That's where I'm from." And like Annie didn't believe in the bunker, but that's where obviously baby daddy Link is. And he's like, "I need to get to Atlanta." He's like, "No, you're taking me back to the bunker in Colorado." Then we get to episode 3, which is a Sinatra point of view episode. And apparently there is a secret power source somewhere in the bunker that only Sinatra knows about because she was planning for the entire end of the world situation. And we meet the guy from the newscast in Paradise, the one that's like, the world is going to end, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, "What can I do to survive it? Tell me. Money is no problem. What do I got to do?" And all of it. And like not a lot really happens in this episode. I think episode 3 is the weakest of the 3. Driscoll kills the president, but Gabriella, played by Sarah Shawnee, top tier baddie, is able to implant a bug on Sinatra, so she's listening in to Sinatra's conversations. So she's trying to figure out where is the secret power source and all this other information. And that is what basically has happened in the first 3 episodes of Paradise Season 2. Episode 1 is as good as Last of Us Episode 3, and there we go.